Well, Letitia, I am excited about today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this um, welcome screen, and I'm going to attempt to spotlight you, and I'll spotlight myself as well. Awesome. Well, this has been a long time coming. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Erin Bound-Anderson of the N50 Project, and I'm the chairperson of the N50 For WomenKind initiative, powered by Food for the Hungry. I will be your webinar moderator for the next hour. The N50 project, just to give you a little kind of context if you're new to us, is a global initiative focused on accelerating digital inclusion, digital participation for the next 50% of the world's population who are not yet meaningfully connected to the digital world. We partner with organizations to create sustainable, tech-driven solutions that center communities' experience through key aspects of life and well-being, such as access and quality of education, healthcare, agriculture, energy, finance, and even environmental sustainability. For WomenKind, powered by Food for the Hungry, is a core initiative within N50. And it's dedicated to bringing bridging the digital gender gap by supporting women and girls to claim their agency and power with the tools and skills and mentorship that they need to thrive in a digital world, ultimately fostering participation and community transformation. And one of our core beliefs is the importance of elevating the voices of women doing extraordinary things, sharing their stories to learn together, to push ourselves to think about how these insights can help us think more deeply about our own contexts. And so, in that spirit, I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to an inspiring woman, innovator, and founder of an amazing N50 partner organization, MENTEE. So when I met Letitia Zwickert almost a year ago now, I was amazed by her thinking. I loved her questions back to me, challenging what I thought about mentorship and power dynamics and more. And I can't wait for you to meet her and find out why we love how MENTEE, the partnership with MENTEE in the N50 For WomenKind program elevates the experience for all of us. So when we dive in, you're going to want to capture your questions. I'm sure you're going to have some. So please use the chat, use the Q&A. I'll be watching both. But by way of quick introduction, Letitia Zwickert is an academic practitioner with over 17 years of experience in both secondary and higher education, and more than 8 years in the nonprofit sector. Forging the way for teachers, Letitia was the first K-12 educator to receive the prestigious Fulbright Schumann Scholar Grant awarded by the U.S. State Department and the European Commission, where she contributed to shaping education policy for migrant, refugee, and underserved youth across Europe. Letitia is a BMW Responsible Leader, a Bosch Fellow, and an Inner Development Goals Catalyst. She is also an author of Membership of Foreigners, scholarly writing, and she produced the documentary Kabul's Apples Are Sweet. As the founder and CEO of MENTEE, a global nonprofit, she's dedicated to the empowering of individuals disadvantaged by systemic barriers through transformative education, mentorship, and global opportunities. So that was a lot. To take a quick breath, welcome, Letitia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And what wasn't mentioned is from my end of the incredible impact I have had in my own life of meeting you, Erin. So thank you for welcoming me here. This is a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, I am excited to dive in because as I stated earlier, our conversations are some of the most inspiring. I look forward to them every time we meet, and we've had a lot of opportunity to meet as we've been developing the N50 For WomenKind Fellowship together. So I would love to just kick it off and let folks get to know you a little bit and help us understand What problem were you trying to solve when you started Mentee? And how has that purpose evolved? How did that purpose evolve over time through community-centered design?
Yeah. There's amazing opportunities and resources and humans with great big hearts. So many people who have the wealth of network and the wealth of opportunity around them, and so many more who miss the opportunity to have access and network and connection. And it was within my own experiences, many of them, particularly the Fulbright Schumann experience, that I realized that there were very simple things that could be done, very tangible things. I didn't know exactly that I would be doing them, but I started to realize that these things were the similar things within a space where there was this refugee crisis happening, to the context of challenge of poverty, of gender oppression, of other kinds of crises, and the similar context of needing information, needing guidance, needing to connect with people who have resources, and bringing in the information that leads to the opportunities. And so all of these things, in my mind, as I walked through some incredible experiences, starting with the Fulbright Schumann and others, and joining the BMW Responsible Leaders Network, and hearing incredible entrepreneurs around me, and me thinking, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can actually try to solve this problem. And for me, it was a process of looking first at the individual and who I was trying to create the solution for. And that's why it became such a unique solution. For me, it was not that I was trying to build a, ed tech company, right? Or a platform or anything. I just wanted to make sure that, this person I had in mind, that all of her needs were going to be solved. And this person, this was one of the first individuals I met in Chicago who really needed a lot of support and access, was a woman who was single with children, working and going to school. And she could not be part of any traditional program that involved mentorship, that involved fellowship, that involved, next step access. And I knew I had to fill that gap. So slowly, I started a program that was face-to-face. And in those beautiful days of learning, I also aspired to bring this entire philosophy to the world. And I was lucky, very, very lucky, to have some cool students who knew me at University of Illinois. And they were part of an organization, a nonprofit called Hack for Impact. And they built my first platform, the first version of the platform that we use today. So the
Amazing.
solution came from without, all these beautiful, wonderful, supportive humans. And for that, I'm continuing to receive the benefit of a very rich community around me.
Amazing. So for people who may not be familiar with the platform, the Mentee platform, can you tell us a little bit about it? How did it evolve, and what did that end up looking like
Yeah.
or feeling like?
It was, the first version of that platform was trying to bring something that was in real life as much as possible, this human connection and this human-centered approach to something like onto the screen, right? And how do you do that? And so in evaluating how I would transform relationships and build trust among people with different backgrounds from different parts of the world, I did a lot of research. And what I found was that within the space of folks who are disadvantaged, who don't have the access that others do, to all the beautiful things we should have in life, that their formula, the formula that existed out in the world for mentorship, was very, very different than the formula that exists out there for mentorship for those who are privileged.
Mhm.
And so I decided to turn it on its head I wanted to put the mentee in the driver's seat as opposed to having some algorithm create a matching pair and off they go. For me, that seemed to be a very limited hierarchical solution that actually was replicating the hierarchy that exists in the world, that was oppressing them, that was creating the barriers for them. And it somehow magically said, hey, this one person's going to solve your needs in 6 months or 12 months and off, I mean, and things are great after that. And many of the programs that I researched had nothing else after that, right? So for me, it was putting the mentee in the driver's seat. They get this access of global mentors who are trained, and it's like a LinkedIn-like experience where you get to see all these profiles. It's better because you can see a little video about who they are. And Erin, I know you know this intimately as a global mentor, that you film a little bit about yourself and you have this incredible ability then to share much more than just your biography and the skills you can share, which is part of that relationship building right away. And that human connection that we hope to spark. And so messages, are exchanged once they find the search feature to find the right mentor for them or mentors, because it's the concept that not one person's going to be able to solve all your problems, but that in fact circles of mentorship around you support you. And we do so much more. I mean, this is the beginning part of a platform where mentees are in the driver's seat. They can reach out to each other in a peer-to-peer space, and then another space for all my partners where they can partner with each other as well. But I wanted to create something very, very rich where mentees, as they went through the process of themselves being trained, of themselves being able to reach out to others, that they were growing, that they were learning as they were doing this. And this was a part of a very, very big process that was putting them wherever they wanted to be, wherever they wanted to go, and doing so for life, because we ebb and flow and we change directions. And our next step in university or in the workforce has a shift in the road, and we have new needs. So I never wanted to limit that to anything. So our mentees are mentees for life. They can transition over to become global mentors, or as they begin, they can be a mentee and a mentor. It just is, it's a very open philosophy, because we are all mentors and we are all mentees at the end of the day. And those relationships are meant to be growth relationships for everyone involved.
Yeah, I have to say, as someone who is a mentor in the platform, and also as we are growing our mentorship program, really matching amazing professional women with amazing women who are looking for mentors in all different fields, it has been such an eye-opener on so many levels. So we've learned quite a bit about this sort of flip on your head approach that you were describing, of really a paradigm shift around kind of traditional mentorship, where you might be in an organization where you are very intentionally paired with someone who's new to the organization, and there are all of these formalized channels to help support relationship. And this really did shift that power dynamic, which I think is so interesting and right in line with that idea of building agency. If we really are about building the agency and empowerment, then you put the power in the hands of women who are seeking and know themselves best about,
They
here's
know
who I want to
themselves
talk
best.
to.
And that's
Yeah,
such an important point to make, because we have assumptions. We
yeah,
come to the table with assumptions. We write the algorithms with assumptions, right? AI is covered with assumptions, unfortunately, right now in many different ways, but there are great people out there doing great work to help alleviate some of that. And we need to make sure that we create spaces where an individual has choice and has the power. And when we did this within Mentee and for the platform, the choices made by our mentees would never have been the choices that we would have set people up for. You have such interesting dynamics that are created then, because you have the power in the hands of the individual who they themselves are going through something we can't possibly imagine. We don't know. And this is, this is the reality for all of us. We're all in situations where there's lots of complexity, and this is the reality of being a human being. But when we are given the opportunity to have power in a situation,
Yeah.
so much seems to align, right? And there's a sense of relief, maybe even in this. There's a lot of beautiful feedback of saying, there are moments in time where this is all that's happening for me, and then I walk back to, what I'm dealing with. So I think power has to do, a lot to do with that. So all of a sudden, I'm feeling power because I've chosen you, and I might not have power to go to the school I'm looking for, but I have some power in this relationship,
Yeah.
and it's so important.
Yeah. And it's something to learn too, because what we're noticing is, okay, is it okay to reach out to more than one person? And we know that we have circles of friends who we talk to. I talk to you for this particular professional advice, and I go to this person for personal support. And to to reach out to multiple people is very empowering, I think. And it
Oh,
really does follow with the title of our talk today, which is mentorship as infrastructure. And so as we think about, and I'm a lover of metaphor, so this really resonated. We think about those concrete ideas around infrastructure, opening up necessary digital connection, but then also mentorship as a network, as you described. And I think in our preparatory conversation, you used a term which I thought was really interesting, and I was going to bring it up for you to add on to. But you said that your approach to mentorship is about functioning less like a ladder and more like an ecosystem or a bridge. And I wondered if you were already speaking to that a little bit, but what else would you add to that kind of idea of infrastructure and how that translates in actual practice?
yeah, I absolutely, that infrastructure symbolism is deep, but outside for sure, we need that mentorship infrastructure within the institutions we build that supports and serves everyone that is part of that institution, right? Um, but we also need that infrastructure within ourselves. And not all of us have been lucky enough to have folks around us that help grow that and realize that's even possible, that we could even reach out to people and just ask them questions and just ask for guidance. And so to have a space that's providing opportunity to have trust and build relationship and grow thoughts and get feedback, but also receive training,
Mhm.
language training, higher education training, right? We offer so many different kinds of things, mind and body healing training on our
Mhm.
platform, as well as our monthly sessions. So there's a lot of teaching that also happens, and reach out to people and ask for those things. And we tend to do that when we're taught to do that, when we see maybe our parents operate that way or others
Mhm.
in our environment operate that way. But folks who are challenged by our systems, the system doesn't teach them they can do that.
Yeah.
And so for me, it really is building not just a structure, infrastructure, but I think of it much more biologically, much
Mhm.
more like an ecosystem, because a structure is something that is finite and it's there and it's not changing, right? But an ecosystem is always changing, and it's changing in concert with its parts. And for me, that's essential
Mhm.
when we're dealing with people in crisis and varying crises, again, of women, in Afghanistan, and folks in poverty and others in war. And you have to have something that is constantly adjusting. So we have the platform, and the platform is a structure, right? But within that is the human element, and the human element of the support that we offer, the programs that we offer, fellowships. We offer remote, internships to work. We offer monthly mental health sessions. And then we also do behind the scenes humanitarian work. And all of these things are because of the need. And if I go back to like my why, I'm just doing this. I'm just making this so that the right pieces are there so the community can keep growing and fulfilling its needs together.
Yeah.
And so for me, it absolutely has to have that ring of something that, adjusts and grows as we do as humans.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, so mentees and mentors come to the platform. Obviously, the N50 mentorship program, we are actively recruiting amazing mentors that can join. And there are, I think you mentioned almost 1,000 mentees in the platform from
More
all
than
of
that. Yeah.
more than
More,
1,000
more
at this
than that.
point,
Yeah.
which just shows the level of need. And we talked about at one point this messy middle idea that it's a key component in learning, right? Those moments when you're learning something new, whether it's new content or a new process, there's almost always this learning curve where things are hard, things are awkward, or unfamiliar. And I would say absolutely necessary for real learning to take place. As you have now been working in this for quite a while, what are some of the tensions or messy middle moments that you've witnessed as because you're bringing together the challenges of digital literacy, connectivity, language, mental health, crises, as you mentioned, where all of those things intersect? How are you seeing that mentorship is helping both mentees and mentors move through that messy middle component?
Yeah. I mean, right now we're over 3,000 mentees, and each with their own story and each with their own needs, even in similar situations. And the messy middle, we all experience. You and
Yep.
I were experiencing this earlier, right? We each in our own day have challenges.
Yep.
And there are challenges that we can handle and take on ourselves because we have the toolkit, because we've done it before, because we've seen someone else handle it. And there are things that we don't know how to do. So we need to ask a friend in our network and hands-on, roll up our sleeves and get through that messy middle together so we can get to that work. And I think part of this is understanding that messy middle, that part is a learning experience. It's a growth experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that when we are, in a place where we're pulling together something new, and sometimes you're pulling your hair out because it seems like something's not going right. It's actually, we're all growing, we're all learning, and so much more so for our mentees. So much more so because they are in a situation where they're dealing with so many more challenges, and each of these steps forward, because if you're in the middle, that means you started somewhere, right? You're progressing somewhere.
That's true.
You have successes that you have to celebrate along the way. Nothing is ever perfect. You don't end up at the finish line really, because you're always going for the next thing and the next. So it's, for me, I think everything is an opportunity to celebrate, to say we're here. And the reality is we, as mentors, as mentees in other settings, we all have, these moments where we have to say, I know this is challenging, but wow, we were able to get here, So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think we overlook that. Many of us do.
Yeah.
And in dealing with situations of hardship, it is essential that we put that at the center.
Yeah, you're really making me think about digital literacy in general, that in having mentorship in person and face to face is one thing, and it's so powerful. And the layer of digital mentorship adds a whole new realm of challenges that even just the logistics of getting online
Yeah.
and navigating a platform and connecting with someone can be daunting. And so, as we've experienced getting onto the platform and getting our feet wet, we have to stop and celebrate the so many checkpoints and celebrations along the way just to get to the point where there are these partnerships and mentorships developing. So
And
I,
that's
yeah,
motivating, right?
it
That's
is.
motivating. It's like, wow, we've done this, right? And then
Yeah.
let's go to the next piece. And there's absolutely, you're in a space with many challenges. And then a lot of folks who I mean, we're not in this situation right now, but let's say you're in a meeting because you're trying to sell yourself and you're trying to get the grant or you're trying to get the funds, for something, and you put the pretty bow on the pretty package, right? But behind that is the reality of, wow, this is really hard to do. Like, to implement it is really hard, or this piece is not always working the way we'd like it to, or
Yeah.
and I think this goes back to the idea of the ecosystem for anything,
Mm.
really. And that is, we are constantly hearing back from our mentees, from our mentors, from our partners, how can this change with us, with the changing needs that we have?
Yeah.
And mentor-mentee relationship is going to change as that grows through the different hurdles that they're going through, right, as well. So I think for me, it's just reflecting from a very individual to a systems level, experience, the learning and the growth that we're all going through. And our dream is to have to rival LinkedIn. I mean,
Yeah.
LinkedIn is out there for professional network for those who have privilege and access, or who have been able to find the right, the right story to tell, and gotten followers this way, if you're really really skilled in that area. But it's not for everybody, right? And so we built the Mentee platform so that we can allow those who are the go-getters. And if you run a program, you have a certain percentage of folks who they're going to be the go-getters, and they're out
Mm.
there, and they're the A student, and they're the ones who are going to be in your pictures and all this, right? If you're focused on sharing back, great output. But I wanted to make sure those who were the quiet ones in the back of the room, I mean, I'm an educator, that
Mhm.
they had the ability to access all of this richness too.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very much something that creates and requires human interaction
Yeah.
again. And that was
Yeah.
just, again, part of my feel for, we have great technology. I hope we can talk more about AI and some great
Yeah.
things. But how do we keep the human part,
Yeah.
and the beauty of the human being involved in
Yeah.
the tech, the advanced tech that we can use to create access?
Yeah. What a great point, and something that we see day in and day out is, in order to get to that human connection, particularly in a digital space, it is overcoming some of these hurdles, these digital hurdles. But what better place to do that than kind of connected to a safe person who you're building a relationship with, where you can both be together working through these things. So, like one area we think a lot about at N50 is digital safety. And we know that online spaces are not unlike physical spaces in some ways, in that they can be places that are unsafe. Maybe people are not who they say they are, or intentions may not always be as they seem. And this is true, especially for women and girls who have to learn that quickly. What strategies have you seen or implement to ensure that girls in the platform, women in the platform are not only gaining that access to technology, but also learning how to navigate digital spaces safely? Or are you seeing that as a general rule?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's a very important question. And I see it as very parallel to our own the philosophy, our evolution of the platform and using our philosophy, right? Like if you're creating something, hopefully you've assessed your own philosophy before you create it. Otherwise, you won't infuse your philosophy in all the aspects of what you're building. Of course, you can go back and change, and we do, and we do hopefully do that, all of us, when we see something isn't jiving with our philosophy, right? And I see that the same way. We have this idea and this vision and version of safety and security. But like I said, it's an ecosystem. We keep, learning and growing and changing and evolving, and there are new things that come about. So we start off with an approach of training and making sure the mentees are trained and making sure the mentors are trained. And then we have safeguards, and that, messaging has ways of, we're making sure that, conversations are safe, and there are always the unknowns, right? We have built-in messaging, we have built-in video rooms where you have your own room and you can meet your mentee there, and you could meet them in their room, what have you. But they can go off and do a Zoom call, and again, this is 18 years old and older with no upper end limit, right, of age. And so they're adults, they can go off the platform, and so the hope is that you've created and shared the energy that you're building as an organization, and attract the kind of people that will continue to amplify and fuel that energy. If I'm going to knock on wood, have not had any issues in regards to someone pretending to be someone and some bad thing happening. So this has not happened, right? Mm-hmm. But what has been, constant is different changes in maybe, looking forward to bringing in youth, right, into some initiatives that we have. And how do you manage that in that setting? So, as we've gone through for women specifically, we've continued, the training part is essential, making sure that our global mentors, and you went through this, are trained in cultural communication and cultural understanding, in feminist mentorship, which we weave a beautiful thread through. And to expand and grow as the training series continues, and to feel in that space truly a sense of what this mission is about. And then we offer lots of opportunities for feedback. We offer lots of opportunities for sharing red flags, again, all of those varying different kinds of safeguards. And then especially the mental health sessions that we have with our partner Key of Life out of Beirut, all women run organization, just to reinforce the strength, the confidence, which is a term we see come up. We analyze kind of what the communication is about. Confidence is one of the top words that we see repeated often.
Yeah.
So that they're growing, they're learning, they're feeling confidence, and they're building these relationships, but then they also know, hey, I have the power to say, hey, something's not right. And I think in that environment, we're also giving them the power to say, hey, something's not right outside of these relationships. And, a lot of mentorship programs for folks who are disadvantaged, as I said, are hierarchical. They're top down. They've, been matched with someone. They don't have the power. They don't have the power of choice, which is so important in psychology and beyond. And so in this situation, they realize they're seated at the table with this person, and our mentors are trained in this way, right? You're seated at the table with this person, and you're both there to learn and grow.
Yeah.
So I think all the systems and all the structures and all the, flags, you can put all these things there. But if you don't have the training and the human connection and the confidence building for the mentee, then you might not have the results you're looking for. So that's what we hope. We will continue to hope that this is the way to solve or deal with that problem. It's the best I can do right now.
No, I think that's fantastic. And there's so many the training so great when you're onboarded into the platform, and it really does reinforce for me that the N50 fellowship or the mentorship program, what we are really intending to bring is threads of those conversations into the mentorship relationship, to talk to mentors and mentees, have a conversation about your digital presence in the world. How do you feel confident? What tools do you use to open up very intentional conversations around what it means to utilize tools that you have access to, even if it's just a phone right now? What kinds of things can you access, and what things might you want to be sensitive about or careful about as you navigate into new spaces? And so there really is it's just a reminder of how important that is to be kind of partnered around those ideas.
Absolutely. And knowing, as you have experienced and your focus really has been with Afghan women, in each in area, right, within the varying different challenges we see that WhatsApp, right, the phone
Yeah.
send is essential.
Mhm.
And so part of that is also then saying, how can we then use this space when we go to digital literacy? How can we use this space to continue to build skills? How can we use, again, the accessible tools that are out there? How can we use them to create and fuel education, and then eventually, hopefully, some way of self-sustaining and building within their own environment.
Right.
So yeah, it's a challenge, and this I will just mention we have an initiative called School of Hope,
Yeah.
and I mentioned this because it's our way of reaching down. Many of our mentees have said, what about my younger sister,
Yeah.
usually that, or younger brother? They need help. They need support. They need education. And this has been a way to start to try to do something about youth in crisis. It aims at youth ages 11 through 17, and it delivers something that is void out there. We have this empty space of a high school diploma. We have courses, we have modules, we have trainings, we have all these wonderful things that many people are doing, but we're not delivering the education at scale, and in ways that, when you're truly in crisis and have issues with data and or electricity or both, that you can also access it. And so this is using the digital space that we can access and funneling it through, this beautiful WhatsApp
Mhm.
opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And this, these handheld devices that, we're very, very lucky that many can access.
Mhm.
So, I think there are many different ways in which we can, on our side, take the advances like Edge AI and the WhatsApp proxy and like all these wonderful things to make it so that even in the hardest to reach areas, they're reached,
Mhm.
and give them what they need, which is, definitely the mentee space. And our platform is allowing for the mentorship, it's allowing for alternative knowledge sharing. We also do fellowships, they're certified, but to give concrete, tangible diploma so that someone can then move on to their next step and not be left behind fully.
Yeah.
And this is so many of our youth today are. And so in digital literacy, we talk about digital literacy, it's beautiful to be able to make that bridge between what we have access to in the digital space and what those who are in the deepest aspects of crisis in our world can have access to. How do we connect those? How do we create this special energy so that we can transfer knowledge and share knowledge and uplift and bring more hope to folks?
Amazing. That's exciting to see where you're headed. And you brought up AI, so I want to ask you a little bit. We actually recently launched a new N50 initiative last week called AI for All, powered by Arrow Electronics, and we're exploring ways that AI can support overcoming barriers to that digital participation. And so what are your thoughts around AI and how that may impact the context of mentorship? Do you see that as or what of the world of AI do you see as most interesting or exciting and maybe most challenging?
Yeah, that's a great question. A wonderful woman, a professor, Rajashi Ghosh at Columbia University, reached out, and we wrote a proposal. We attempted to be one of the lucky winners for the Google Generative AI competition that had taken place this spring. We did not get it, but it was all about that. It was all about how do we bring AI in a very tangible way to mentorship. And for our School of Hope, we're using AI completely infused, but it's a very, very different question than specific mentorship and guidance. And I it has its place, right? There for me is always going to be this duality of how do we use the tech that we have to serve everyone on this planet?
Hmm.
And how do we keep a human heart always there, always beating, always thinking, always relating, and always helping, ebb and shift and flow and, create the changes that we are seeing need to be done as we move along. So, without it being mechanical.
Hmm.
And so AI is there for me for additional support. It's there for the ability to, alleviate, the additional um, unnecessary, strain on the mentor for minor things that AI can accomplish or more major things that the mentor might enlist AI for, right? And in doing so, create a deeper, better relationship between the mentor and the mentee by having a tool there
Hmm.
that allows to support growth and learning and eases some of the burden of, on the mentor when maybe they don't know exactly or fully, the right answer. They're giving guidance, or maybe it's someone who's teaching something and wants to give some tutoring options. Maybe it's someone who's asking for, someone to, help fine tune something, and they can use this additional kind of party involved in
Hmm.
the exchange to help navigate that together. I see it very similarly as I do as an educator in the space of a classroom. There's a place for AI
Hmm.
alongside everything that you do as an individual.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, in communicating and realizing and learning and growing together that you find how this tool can benefit. And sometimes it's on and sometimes it's off.
Hmm. Yeah, knowing when to use it, when not to, and how to use it to benefit that relationship. I was thinking about my own recent example of really just wishing that the live translation tools of AI were like, I don't know if it's a year from now or
It's too long,
a few
whatever it
days.
is.
I don't know how long it's going to be, but
Yeah.
to me, that is going to be a game changer for
Yes.
allowing for even more of this cross-cultural conversation to happen more seamlessly,
Oh,
where
when I saw it and I shared it with you, and I was so excited. And it's, we have to wait for the real version or the full version to come out. But those types of things, so that is what is exciting about AI.
Yeah.
That is what's exciting about technology, is how can you facilitate relationships that are human in a better way? How can you make that deeper and more profound?
Yeah.
Language translation is such a great example, but also the ideas of just, trying to use this space. There's another mentor who was sharing the beauty of being able to share culture and using the wonderful tools, online tools, to be able to share pictures of locations with, it may seem to us like that's an easier thing to do. You don't need technology, but a lot of our mentees are women in Afghanistan, and they can't go and just take pictures of things, and they don't have the freedom, right? But they can go on their internet, they can share, and they can, search around. And these are the types of things that, become just a supportive piece to building relationships and growing.
Yeah. I kept meaning to remind myself that anyone in the audience is welcome to put a question in the chat, to add to the conversation, to ask a question. I'd be happy to share those, and ask them of Letitia. And while folks are thinking about things that they may want to ask, we did collect a couple of questions ahead of time, and I think one of them, I'm really interested in your response, thinking about all of the different ways of looking at yourself as a mentee and a mentor, and the blending of those things too. But many people don't see themselves as qualified to be mentors. This is something that I've heard informally, like, oh, I don't know if that's me. But how can we reframe who gets to be a mentor and who gets to be mentored? What would you say to encourage folks who maybe haven't thought about themselves as a mentor to see that really they would be amazing? I think that's something I'd love to unlock, is that there is a gift in everyone, and
Yeah.
especially in a platform where mentees can select the mentor, um, the more varied that is, the better. How would you encourage people to maybe see themselves as mentors more?
Well, you just put it so beautifully, that everybody does have a gift inside of them. It's interesting in my own experience with talking with folks. They'll say, well, for example, I'm an accountant. I can teach some folks, accounting, right? Or, some numbers, right? Like I can do that. And then you start to have this conversation, and you start to say, well, you know, the ideas of your passions, the things you do on the side, the listening you do for your spouse, the conversations you have with your coworkers, and when they're supportive, and when you're feeling, oh, you walk away from that conversation realizing you were able to help someone, right? Like that's what mentorship is.
Yeah.
It's the listening, it's the sharing of that gift. Like you just have some knowledge that you were very lucky to acquire in your life, whether that be because you've watched and learned from those around you, whether you took it out of a book, whatever it might be. But we don't realize how rich we are, all of us. And when we sit together as labeled a mentee and mentor, we're both mentee, mentor,
Yeah.
mentor, mentee,
Yeah.
all together. And we each have things that the other does not. And to be able to sit there and say, you know what, yeah, I kind of know how to do this. Let me show. And then, the other person, like, this is what I've learned, and this is how I handled the situation. And then you're like, gosh, I would never have thought of that. And as human beings, you've just opened yourself to creating something that is extraordinary. And again, that's where we have the ability to do things as humans that, AI is never going to replace. And so I see that within all of us, we have this magic gift, as you say, that is incredibly important, I would argue, that we tap into, because it helps us also grow.
Yeah.
And that's why I have no preconceived ideas for Mentee when we offer and we share and we start other partnerships. It's always open and offered that you can join as a mentee and here's the role, and you can join as a mentor and here's the role, and now you choose.
Mhm.
And both, like, hey, great, that's awesome. So we know that there's certain criteria, right, for the mentee. That you have to be disadvantaged by local and global systems. And mentor, it's anybody who wants to
Mhm.
mentor. So I would argue that if anyone here believes that they know someone who could be a good mentor, to
Yeah.
have that conversation with them and look also in the mirror and realize you'd be an amazing mentor as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about just the question of, do you have a story, right? Like, if you have
Mm-hmm.
a story, you can hear a story and you can share a story. And those are so, so powerful. And oh, we've got a comment. No questions. Enjoying the conversations.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic. Um, well, so no questions from the audience at this point. What advice, kind of as we begin to wrap up, what advice would you give to those on this call about what they can do? And we were talking about it a little bit just now about see yourself as a mentee or a mentor or both. But is there some advice that you might give to anyone on this call or someone who's listening to this later and thinking about what they could do?
I back to my why. um, Built Mentee because I felt that human connections, were so
Yeah.
important in helping us grow and helping us move forward and helping us live better lives. And I believe those connections are not just at the individual level, but at the institutional level, right? And at the systems level, right? It's
Mhm.
and I would say that to have that reflection with inside yourself. Am I able to give, a little time each month to mentor? That's one thing we have no time requirement for
Mhm.
our own program. We have
Yeah.
fellowships that do. We have one of them, and there are other fellowships that do. But just to give time, you give the time you can. You find days that work. It's so easy.
Yeah.
So we wanted something that was very human centered again for that mentee who was working and studying and had children and she's a single mom. Find the time that works and make those connections. And then also with whatever you've built or with whatever you're working, wherever you're working, how can you open your institutional heart
Mhm.
and hold the hands of others and make more impact together?
Yeah.
It's the collaboration and it's the connections and it's us working together. Obviously, it's not our leaders that are going to do this, right?
Mhm.
It's us coming together and saying, hey, I have this. Hey, you need to learn this. And let's come together. And for me, it's also
Yeah.
this, institutional mentorship, if
Yeah.
you will, but also building a collaboration and growing together. And so
I love
that's what
that.
I'd leave you with.
I love that. It is you made me think about a puzzle, that we are all a piece of the puzzle. And by coming together, we create this more clear picture for whoever is putting that together. And we're all putting together some kind of puzzle in life, right?
And
So
we can all help in
I love
different
that.
ways.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, a huge thanks to you for sharing your journey a little bit. I think we only tapped into a little bit of the background that is Letitia. Every time I talk to you, I'm like, I did not know that. We're gonna have to talk about producing your short film a little bit more too. I'm just fascinated. But also a huge thanks to the For WomenKind team that has helped to prioritize these webinars for all of us and connect us to trailblazing women making a difference in their fields like yourself. Um, and for those of you on the call, we invite you to be part of this exciting mentorship experience. We'd love for you to join the N50 For WomenKind mentorship program. And I put a link in the chat and would love for you to join. But what we are doing is connecting women from our N50 organizations and other professional organizations to women in communities like you heard about from Letitia today, and in our other sessions that you've heard from several of our partners in this series. And we know it's transformational for everyone who participates. I'm speaking from deeply personal experience. I have the most incredible mentees as a result of this program. Joining is really easy, and yet there's a messy middle. So, come and engage in that with us. We're always looking for amazing mentors. And if you're listening today, hopefully you really feel, I want to join this group. In fact, tomorrow we have our first mentor circle in N50, where we're going to be gathering some of the mentors that we've pulled together to really talk about what are you doing that's working, what is helping you, what is a challenge, and work through some of that together as well. So come meet other N50 mentors through those mentor supports and have access to this entire global, beautiful platform that Letitia's described through MENTEE. And you will be part of a movement of mentorship that is, you don't want to miss it. We're definitely integrated with corporate volunteerism structures too. So if your organization uses something like Benevity or organizations that use other volunteer systems, we can definitely leverage that for support. So please click that link, share your interest, and obviously contact me anytime you like. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to follow up with additional questions or inquiries. And Letitia, again, I can't thank you enough for your time, your dedication. You're so responsive and so lovely in supporting this amazing community. So I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate everyone's time who's joined today. Thank you so much, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Erin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.